The cabinet we're cutting the pieces for is rectangular in shape. This piece of material is long enough that we can get one side and one end out of each strip. So we'll cut 2 strips, each 8 inches wide, and that's the full depth of the cabinet. If we use one setting of the fence, we're guaranteed that the pieces will all be the exact same width. Now we have 2 pieces of stock that are identical in width, so we'll be able to cut the sides and the ends out of these pieces and know that they'll all match up. We're going to use the miter gauge to make the cross cuts. Since we can't use the miter gauge and rip fence together, that's a good way to get a kickback, we're going to use a gauge block that we attach to the rip fence. After adjusting the fence so the gauge block is the right distance from the blade to produce our part, we move the gauge block back to the operator's side of the fence and lock it down. We want the gauge block back far enough so we can contact it with the stock to establish the length, but then when we move the piece into the blade, the piece is away from the gauge block before it starts getting cut by the blade. The first thing we want to do is make a very light cut on the end just to square it up. We always want to start with a fresh edge. We'll make a pass on there just to clean that edge up, and we'll slide it over, contact the gauge block, and then push it through to cut our first piece. With the miter gauge adjusted for length, we put the fresh cut edge against the work stop. We'll leave the factory edge on this end, so we cut this end off square. And as long as we hold the board square to the fence, push it through evenly, we'll get a nice square cut. And here we have all the pieces we need for our box. The sides are exactly the same length. The ends are the same length, and all the pieces are the same width.